right? So let us start with the secularism, very subjective and very what you can say. Let us take new page itself. Very interesting topic. That is your secularism. See, whenever we have a question of secularism or any debate on secularism, we always try to say that how this secularism differs from Western society. Now, let us leave it that for a while. Let us try to understand normally. See, ultimately, this debate of secularism arises because the state have basically replaced God. State have basically replaced God. God used to govern something, own something, right? And king used to sort of rule on the behalf of God, right? In fact, sociological theories, political science theory says that state is work of God on earth. Okay, if you read the political science, it talks about that state is nothing but it is the work of God on earth, right? But let us not go into that detail. Now, it means that there will be always a conflict between these two, that who is supreme vis-a-vis our society, right? So this question gives right to the concept of secularism, that what would be the relationship of a state with God or church. If you read the Western literature, they refer them as a church. Now there are three basic concepts all over the world, right? I mean, there are multiple concepts, but in three varieties all this concept shapes. The first variety is that you see, let us have a strict separation, both have different function, let one function not intervene with other. That is the one way, a strict separation theory that we say. That see, God have different domain to govern, they only govern the spiritual domain and they govern the relationship between citizens, so one has nothing to do with other. Secondly, they say that no, this is not very correct. So what we do, that this state, the first concept is very true when there is only one God. Now suppose we have multiple gods, right? We have multiple religion. What to do then? Then the second theory comes more or less, and says that see, what the state will do, a state will have equal separation from each one of them God. Equidistance theory, meaning that see, if you are a state, then I will treat Christianity in the same way as I am teaching the Buddhism or Hinduism. It means that state will not take into consideration any one God particularly, but they will be maintaining principled distance, very key word, principled distance from each of the God, right? Now when these two things were argued in the Constitutional Court of India, Supreme Court, the Supreme Court rejected both of them and said that see, this is not we are trying to achieve here. So what we will do, that we will come up with a new theory and we will say that the state and the God domain is not separate. Sometimes they overlap, right? So how to govern that overlap? So we said that see, what we will do, that we will intervene in each of the sphere of the gods, but we will intervene it equally, meaning while intervening, we will not discriminate. So in India, secularism do not talk about complete separation. We say that no, it means that we accept the fact that there are certain lives in India or certain relationships, social relationship, which is not purely governed by the state. There are certain relationships which is governed both by state as well as God, right? So the state and God has to have some sort of relationship. So what kind of relationship both of us will have? So relationship will be of equal approach, meaning that we will intervene in each religion. We will intervene in each religion, but we will intervene in them equally. It means that while interacting, we will not discriminate between the religions. That is the principle that the Indian courts have followed. Right now, there are multiple criticism because this concept that God and state have some sort of overlaps actually is inspired from the writings of Savarkar. Okay, because he talks about that in India, you cannot separate. Right? Someone is laughing also, right? But that is very correct. In fact, one of the criticism of Supreme Court understanding of the secularism is that they inspired too much from the writing of yes, Mr. Now, if you think about it, he's not wrong in a way, because in India the way of life is so ingrained into religion. Each of our habits is so ingrained into religion that you cannot separate them. Right? So Supreme Court came out with a peculiar notion of secularism in India, saying that see, the India will have secularism neither based on equidistance approach, neither based on principled distance approach, but we will have sort of an interference, but that interference will have equal interference in each ones of the life. right? We will not have the interference that, okay, we will have interference only with the Hinduism, not with the Muslims. In fact, this secularism is ultimately, if you look at articles of the constitution, they actually talks about, it gives the right to a state to interfere on the ground of public order, on the ground of health, right? That is not provided anywhere else in the constitution. I mean, comparative constitution all around the world, right? So it means we signify the importance that, okay, religion is a part of the life, which is the same area, give me a minute, which is the same area governed by the state itself, right? So a state will be given some sort of authority to govern the same area, but while governing that, they will not discriminate. And that is why a key word was used again, on the Mr. Savarkar's idea, Sarva Dharma Sambhav, right? Every religion must coexist. It means it is not saying that the state will not interfere. The state will interfere, but while interfering, they will not discriminate among the religions. Understood that particular point? Okay, right? So that is the sort of philosophical foundation. Now the question turns to that how then Supreme Court, how then the Supreme Court has read the secularism into the constitution. So remember, whenever there is a question about secularism, these things has to be written in the introduction part, hardly 7 to 8 lines, nothing more. Okay. Then you will move and you will talk about that how Supreme Court has interpreted secularism, right? So remember, you will cite 3 specific provisions of the constitution with regard to secularism. First is the preamble itself. You must be knowing they have provided for the word. Second, you will cite fundamental right and DPSP combinedly, right? In the DPSP, you can talk about Uniform Civil Code. Okay, it means do not prohibit that you will not go into the life of the citizens that is governed by the religion. Right now in India, most of the personal laws is governed by the law of that particular religion itself, right? So it means that also provides, it means you can write Article 44 do not actually explicitly prohibits state from interfering into the matters of religion. What it does, it simply does that while doing so you will not discriminate. It means you can interfere, but while doing so you will not discriminate. Third provision where you can cite is the voting right. It means political rights can also not be divided on the basis of religion. In fact, we expressly prohibit we cannot have a separate electoral roll, right? So when you write the heading constitutional manifestation of secularism, you will cite these 3 specific articles. Understood that particular point, right? So any question of secularism, you will first talk about philosophical foundation, right? You will hint at how it is different from other. Then you will write that, taking the cue from the Savarkar's writing, or if you don't want to offend, leave Savarkar, taking the cue from multiple jurists, right? The court have sort of innovated the concept of secularism by providing that allowed to interfere into the matter of religion, but while doing so they will not discriminate, right? Only the philosophical foundation. Then you will write the constitutional manifestations, 3 specific: constitutional manifestation of secularism into DPSP and fundamental right, constitutional manifestation into preamble, and constitutional manifestation into voting rights. It means you cannot have a separate list based on religion. Understood that particular point? Okay, quite simple. Then you will go in detail and write the cases about secularism, right? What are the cases that have been held or where the court have talked about secularism? So there are 3 cases, remember. See, if you can perceive, I am literally giving you the answers of the question of secularism, that's it. Okay, how you have to, and that is how the approach should be. Do not go and philosophize, the multiple articles of secularism, not needed at all, okay? That is what, will get you good result. Now, what are the cases? So remember, there are 3 cases. The first case you will cite is the case Kesavanan Bharti. That actually talked about secularism is a part of basic structure. Understood? Very simple? Yes. Good? Good. Second case that you will be citing is N.M. Thomas versus Union of India. हाँ मैं सब लिखवाऊँ. अच्छा पहले लिख लेते हैं, तो भूल जाएंगे. चलिए start कीजिए. Secularism. Write down secularism. If you look at the whole concept of secularism or debate of secularism, ultimately the root is to define religion. Okay, how do you define religion? Think about it deeply. Suppose if you are saying that I will equally interfere in each religion. Now suppose there is a religion which is clearly defined, such as monotheistic religion, Christianity, Islam, clearly well defined. You see, these are the essential principles, and that is the religion. In that, if you start to interfere, it is very clearly visible that you are interfering. Okay, because all of them almost more or less believe on some particular set of principles. But suppose if you are talking about a religion which is as diverse as Hinduism, so even if you interfere, some person will feel like no interference at all, and some person will feel like there is a great interference. right? So this concept of religious neutrality or dharma nirpekshta actually is quite problematic because of the essential difference in defining the concept of religion. Now Indian courts have evolved the concept of essential practice in terms of religion, that if a practice is essential to a religion, now how do you determine? So you will ask them negatively, how? That if you remove that practice, does the essential characteristics of that religion changes? If the answer is yes, then that can be considered as essential practice. Now this formulation of defining religion is very good for monistic religion, because more or less the formulation is same. Like in Islam, if you see, there are 3-4 basic things, 5 times you have to pray, you have to do that, what are the things, right? Same thing is with the Christianity also. But in Hinduism, that thing itself does not apply. So this essential practice doctrine is more suited for monoistic religion. It is not suited for pluralistic religion such as Hinduism. It's literally not suited for that. Why? Because of multiple religious beliefs. Understood that particular point? That is why we have all the time problem in defining the word secularism. Okay, that is why this line is important. It vibrates between, oscillates between two extreme ends. Neutral to everyone, or second, sarv dharma sabhava, respect for all religion. But what is the meaning of religion is a subject matter of debate. Understood that particular point? Now change the paragraph.